I was definitely like that mayor of 5 miles. If somebody needed something like, oh, I need my heater fixed, or I need something painted, I'm like, oh, I got a guy. And the guy would always be awesome and always take great care of our patients. And like, I always felt like they would go above and beyond, and we would do the same.
Welcome back to ChiroX, where we talk business growth for, well, chiropractors. I'm your host, Corey Hibben, and you just heard Dr. Fisher talk about the one strategy that fueled his multi-million-dollar practice: become the mayor of 5 miles. That phrase perfectly encapsulates what Dr. Fisher did in order to build such a mature practice that he was able to run it from 2,500 miles away and still be integrated into the community. He didn't just open a business, he became the trusted resource in his local area. In this episode, Dr. Fisher breaks down the thinking, culture, and high-level thinking required to step out of treatment and to build a business that runs without you. We discuss the incredible event-driven marketing that was able to drive 70 new patients a month, which 84% of those were from referrals, his philosophy of principles first, team second, and then the patients, and his 20-step process and how he vets and hires team members that align with his company culture and values. If you are a high-earning chiropractor who wants to increase your leverage, reduce your time in the office, and become the undisputed authority in your local market, this episode's for you. Let's dive in. So you ran a multi-million-dollar office from 2,500 miles away, commuting only 6 hours a month. How did you structure your time and team and mindset ultimately to be able to balance remote and also being able to leverage leadership and still stay as a strong leader despite being so far away from the practice?
6 days a week I was in the practice. So every other week I would fly back. And so I lived in North Carolina, and my offices were in Reno, Nevada. And so I would leave on Sunday night, fly in, I would see patients. Monday, I would do office meetings and all admin stuff on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, I would see patients and I would catch the red eye, fly home. I'd get home Thursday morning. And then I would be home for about 10 days. And then I would, in 10 days later, fly out Sunday and rinse and repeat.
This sounds exhausting. Like, how were you able to, one, maintain the ability to do so, but then also to keep just like staying as a strong leader of the practice without it kind of, I guess the expression is often, as the cat's away, the mice will play. Like, how did you avoid that?
So a couple things. One, we had a great general manager who oversaw the 2 offices, and then I had a great partner. And so he was like boots on the ground there. And then I would come in, and my job was mostly like casting vision and like positive and building team and culture. So that's how we did that. And then I would do meetings while I was here, but it wasn't a lot. And then, yeah.
So it was predominantly just like leading from afar via making sure that the vision and the culture and everything stays in line. I know there's a component too of like, you're very big on helping people develop as individuals, and as buzzwordy as this expression is of like personal development, like how much did that play into being able to maintain the culture?
It was a lot. And I think a lot of it was just our mission and our purpose for the office. And and the office was really mature. Like, we have the team members are still there. I exited that. I did a 7-figure exit with that clinic, and the doctor's still there who owns it. He was my first associate. He's the one who bought it. And so he was great. And then we had another partner in the other office, and he now owns that one. And so having a great team was the way that worked. And then being in practice, we were in practice when I started doing that about 13 to 15 years. And so the practice was more mature, not super mature, but more mature than a lot of offices.
What was the mission or the values about it that made it so compelling to people? Because like, this is a conversation that I have honestly with a lot of doctors on the show, is the challenges of, one, attracting good talent, and then 2, keeping good talent. And the thing that often comes up, unsurprisingly, is like having some sort of mission that people are on board with and want to rally behind, which I totally agree with. And also 2, being able to like have a certain values that people are also aligned with, which naturally builds the culture. I'm curious as to like, for that one specifically, what was it that was so compelling that made people want to like stick around and continue to grow the business?
I don't know if it is ever about the business. It was always about our community and the people. Like, it's funny. I think a lot of times we create a business and then we put our core values where, we reversed it. Like, I put my core values and then created a business to my mission. And then everybody who was in my tribe, they were on that mission too, and they wanted the same thing. And a lot of them didn't know they wanted that. And then they heard it and they're like, yeah, I want that too. And so it was just all about the community and taking care of, one, our team. We always did principal first, team second, then patients, then process. And so that was a big thing for us. And there's a lot of good friendships in our team. We did a lot of like quarterly, we had different team building things. We did a lot of different things as a culture. And then we're also very supportive of each of the team members, like anything from baptisms to, funeral, any of those things, like you'd see multiple team members at. We do like we had a baseball team, we had a college football team, we sponsored those, but not only did we sponsor them, they were important to us. So anything we sponsored or were involved with, it was like, does that align with who we are? And versus like, oh, that's a good opportunity. Oh, that's a good opportunity. And then I think one of the biggest thing is I was a very event driven practice. Like over the like 13 years, we averaged for the last decade, we had north of 75 new patients a month, and 84% of them were referrals.
Events or from existing patients?
Both, like, but they were all from like internal different connections, different events. Like we had a patient appreciation event that we do every year. And the first year we had 40 people at the one of the last years I got to do it, we had 1,200. And so it was just a way to drive excitement and fun and really be part of the community. And we adopted like when we first started, we're like, trying to find charities, and it was like, oh, this would be a good charity versus like, oh, who do we believe in and what do we want to support? And so that's really where we got more traction when we started to align with the people who already aligned with us versus try to align with somebody that like, oh, that's, Boys and Girls Club, which is a great mission. And we were part of them for a while, but it didn't necessarily align the same way as like we were really like the two places was Awaken, that we really leaned into, and Awaken was like sex trafficking. So that was just something that was just in our heart and in our soul. And then there's one other one, and we got involved. And so when we were involved with something, we were involved. We weren't like lukewarm. And then just the relationships and in the community, I think one of the things that I think I did really well in my career, I was always like never eat alone, like never eat lunch alone. And so I'd always eat lunch with either a team member, another doctor, or a leader in the community. Like you know, just never ate alone. And it seems silly, but that was what my lunch hours were.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like a big part of this was like leveraging your strengths of honestly just like what clearly sounds like just a love and appreciation for people. And what's like, so you use that to your favor to get deeply entrenched within the community, build something that like the community would actually rally behind and want to be a part of. You said something, you alluded to it briefly, but you said the principles was the number one thing. What do you mean by that? What were your principles and what do you mean by that?
So the chiropractic principle. So like the principle of the body self-healing, the 33 principles in chiropractic, like our principles were chiropractic. And so we always put that first. And so like what happened to me in 2004 was we had a patient mistreat one of our team members, and my partner was there, who was just a new doctor at that point, and this person mistreated one of our team members, who the team member was actually my ex-wife, and I took the side of the patient and he took the side of the team member, and that was the last time I ever took the side of a patient because I was so blind to like, oh, we just need to serve the patient. We just need to serve the patient that I literally sacrificed at that time my best friend, like my partner, and for a patient. And so that's where I had to get super clear on what the principles and where we're going to run our office. So that's where we were like, okay, principle first. Like if somebody breaks the chiropractic principle, like one of the things, like I'm like, if you're not aligned in our office, if you're not getting checked in our office, you're probably not in our office. Like you don't, like we didn't want any team members that were out of alignment with the principles. So then that was the first place. Then it was like team. Like if a patient would say something about a team, I shifted to, wow, that doesn't sound like them at all. Let me check. And versus before I'd be like, oh yeah, we don't do, like I would a lot of times take the patient side, where I started to take the team side. And then the patient, from a patient standpoint, a lot of times people will put patients before, or process before patients. So like we had a 2-day process. Like when people came to get adjusted, we did a day 1 and a day 2. But if somebody was in a lot of pain or we're getting ready to go into a holiday weekend, I'm like, okay, I'm going to break the process because that's going to serve the patient better. But I'm always going to put my team first, but my team will never come before our principal.
You also said too, as well, of just like more or less getting the mission very clear as to what you were telling people and what people wanted to rally behind when they heard the mission, that they wanted to be a part of it. What was the mission that you were talking about within your community that were getting people excited about it and wanting to support it?
I think it's hard because I think it's the missions lived out every day, but it was in probably a couple different components. One, we had a great affirmation, and the affirmation is what we said every day. Our mission was to restore health. That was our mission, and it wasn't to. And new team members would come on board, and I'd say, "Oh, what do you think that restore health means?" They're like, "Oh, help people become healthy." I'm like, "That's part of it. What else?" And they're like, "Well, that's it." But we wanted to restore health in a human with themselves in a relationship, and then all of a sudden in a family, in a community, in a city, state, planet. And so that's how we wanted to restore health. So that was our impact. And we know every single person on average will interact with 80,000 people. So if we saw 100 people, we would be able to impact, you know, 800,000 people that day.
I want to go back to the event thing. You said you guys were doing a ton of events and it was one of the biggest referral sources for you, which I think is, I agree, right? I think that generally speaking for most practices, depending upon what stage you're in, this is this thing I see most commonly done is like referrals, local events, grassroots, I guess you could say, is like really getting it mixed up in the community. I think eventually most practices reach a point where they have to start looking for other avenues. They don't have to, but I think it could be beneficial, I guess you could say, from like whether it's social media or Google or whatever, name your thing. I'm curious though, from the event side of things, since you've done so many of these, what were like the home runs, or what were the ones that were like most effective that you guys did out of like maybe on a reoccurring basis? Or I'm just curious as to like what made those events so, like which events were so successful, and then what made them successful?
I'll tell you my top five and then I'll break them down. So my top five, number one was our annual birthday. So we'd have a birthday, and I'll go into that. The second one was our patient appreciation day. The third one was our food drive, then our toy drive, and then we had a chili cook-off in one of the other offices, which was a birthday. So I'm very like, I don't know if I'm competitive now, but like I like to be competitive with other team members. So our birthday, what that one was like our birthday, we would have a rib cook-off. So me and my partner both like to cook ribs. So we would, we had rules, and we would invite 3 to 5 patients. They could do a rib cook-off against us. We'd do a Saturday where we would see patients, regular patients. We'd have regular hours, and then we'd have new patients that whole day. And so in that, we would schedule up to 25 to 30, 20, well, 25 to 27. We never got to 37 or 30, but 25 to 27 new patients in that one day. And we do all their day one. So we'd have one CA who do their consult. We'd have the doctor who do the exam. And then we had a CA who do the x-rays. So we could see a new patient every 15 minutes. And I think it could be more efficient, but that's as efficient as we got. And what it would do is it would just generate a lot of excitement. So we'd have, probably 200-300 people come to the office on the rib cook-off. So some would get adjusted, some wouldn't, some would just show up for the party. Then we had like this whole rib cook-off, and like we had a trophy, and it was mostly about bragging rights. There was no real reward except for the patient. Whoever the patient won, they did get a cool gift card somewhere. And so that was my favorite from a generating new patients. That was our best one across the board. Like we consistently got between 20 and 27 new patients a year when we did that on that day. And they were great patients because they were referrals.
Do you think it was like food related? I mean, like what was it about it? I guess, you know what I mean? Like it was it because it's like, oh, we get to come eat free food kind of deal, or like what was it?
I don't know. I think for me, like, I think food has always been a place to connect. And, they always talk about breaking bread. So anytime we'd have a party, like we always had food, no matter who it was or, where it was, but we'd always have some sort of food. And so I think I think the excitement was really, there was a bit of competition. Like Rick and I were very competitive against each other. And so we would definitely put everything we had into cooking the ribs. And so the patients, like to see that. And then the patients who wanted to do it, like they would, like our whole parking lot, we would have like probably 10 or 10 spots taken up with these barbecues, cooking ribs out that morning. We'd get there at 5 a.m. to cook our ribs because I was doing new patients. He saw regular patients that day. So we would get there at 5, we'd unload our things, we'd, get that going. And it was just a great way to, I think, just have fun. I think the most of it was like, where can we have fun? And so that was one of our favorite ones. And it was interesting on the timing because I don't think it was any one event. I think all of them were kind of like base hits, doubles. That was definitely a triple, probably a home run. but, that was the biggest thing, and that was in May, so May 1st was that one, and then we do, like, Heroes Month, like, we always had a different event each month in office, not necessarily going outside of the office, like, it wasn't the screenings, it wasn't those things, we would just have different events, and we literally our marketing person, she would spend a weekend a month undecorating and redecorating the office for whatever was going on.
I'm no stranger to the event world, so I gotta give credit where credit is due because I actually just recently, I literally just posted about it today that I've been running a community here in Austin called the Health Hustlers, which is basically like health related business owners that come together and just to network and collaborate. And I've been doing it for about 3 years now, and I've actually officially decided to pass the torch on to somebody else to continue to run it because like as I've been doing this for long enough that I used to do them like monthly and then it moved to quarterly. And like even quarterly was like, it just felt like it was a lot of work. Like there's a lot that goes into hosting an event. If no one's ever done it, like people on the outside looking in are like, oh yeah, you just like get some food and you invite some people and people show up. And it's like, you have no idea.
And that was our annual picnic. Our annual picnic, like I literally over here, I still have the playbook for that whole thing. It's a year planning. We had 70 volunteers to 80 volunteers each year, plus our team of, between 20 and 30. And so it is a lot, and there's like specific spaces. So, but yeah, so that was probably my favorite one. My and that slid into first place over the patient appreciation picnic, and we had that, and that was just like we would give away great grand prizes. We'd reach out to our community, and we would build baskets. We'd build between 100 125 baskets with between 300 and 500 different prizes. And so our team members, we just ask them, say, hey, anybody you do business with, we want to promote their business. And so would you ask them to donate something? And we would get things donated from like, we knew some jewelers, they would donate some nice jewelry. So then we moved to a silent auction. Then we had like people had places in Tahoe. So they would say, hey, you could rent that. We had a golf pro. She says, hey, I'll do golf on this exclusive golf thing with Dr. Cliff and Dr. Rick. So then that was a cool thing. And so we would get our community involved and we would promote our community. And so I was definitely like that mayor of 5 miles. Like if somebody needed something like, oh, I need my heater fixed or I need something painted. I'm like, oh, I got a guy. And the guy would always be awesome and always take great care of our patients. And like I always felt like they would go above and beyond and we would do the same.
What did you just say? The mayor of 5 miles? What did you say?
Yeah. So you want to be the mayor of 5 miles. So you want to know everybody's business, who's good, who's bad. And like, and as I've gotten older, I've cleaned it up because before I just liked like my friends, but now I'm like, who's doing the best work in town? And I just want to know who they are so I can send my people to them.
OMG. I have never heard that expression before, the mayor of 5 miles, but that is phenomenal. The irony in this is like my fiance who has a practice here in Austin, she just hosted a very similar event, but specifically for Halloween. I think it was called Ghouls Night or something like that. Yeah, it was the same. It was similar concept, right? Is like she basically got like connected with every local gym, PT, food, wellness, juice shot. I mean, name your thing. Like they were probably a part of this event, and got all sorts of donations, a bunch of free services, and a bunch of cards, and a bunch of goodie bags, and all this amazing stuff. And it's a lot of work, but like, yeah, the payoff can be so worth it. I actually recently had another doctor on, Dr. Savvy Ford, previous episode, if anyone wants to check it out. But that's what she's done to build her practice. So she is predominantly like a pediatric mother's practice, and she does these like wine and women's night, I think it is. And she does them, I think, like once a quarter. And she's like the ROI on them, she like maybe spends like, I don't know, $1,000 we'll say to like host one of these events. And like obviously a lot of time going into it. But the amount of patience that she ends up getting from it is like 10x of like whatever she invested just to host the event. So yeah, they're so powerful.
And the goodwill in it too. Like she's helping these other practitioners get their name out. That's who's like top of their list now. Like the best way to get a referral is to give a referral. And it's always like oh, how do I build my practice? How do I build my practice? Versus, hey, how do I serve my community at the highest level? And then God will take care of the rest.
That's such a good way to say it, man. Which is why probably it's so important that where you decide to place your clinic is hopefully in a community you want to be a part of.
100%, right? Like,
yeah.
and there's always room at the top. I remember when I first opened my practice in Reno, I opened up next to 7 chiropractors. So I moved in with one guy. Or no, 6, sorry. I moved in with one guy. So he was a chiropractor. I shared space. I rented space. The guy right next door had 4 or 5 doctors, 4 full-time and then like 1 part-time. And then one door down was another chiropractor. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, they'll attract their people and I'll attract my people and it'll work out. And 2 years later, we outgrew the space. I bought my first building, and then they were all kind of at the same spot. So everybody kind of grew to where they were gonna grow. They attracted who they were gonna grow. And when I first started, I did go door to door. So when I first opened, I went door to door to about 2,500 different homes. And, I built a mailing list. This was back when you, like, mailed stuff. I built a mailing list of, like, 800 and something people, and so when I opened my practice, so from February to May, I went door to door to open up, and one of the best things out of my door to door was I met this one lady, and she says, "Oh, there's this great group called LaTip." I'm like, "LaTip?" I'm like, "I've never heard of that." She's like, "Oh, it's a networking group like BNI." I'm like, "I never even heard of BNI." Like, I didn't know anything. And she's like, "Oh, it'd be a great group for you, and our chiropractor just left." I'm like, "Awesome." So I go to the group. There's like 50 people in this group. I'm like, "Wow, this is amazing." I'm like, "I'm gonna sign up." So I wrote a check before I was even in business, like $1,000, $1,200. I'm like, "This is gonna be awesome." And then I was also at that same time introducing myself to local chiropractors. And I go into this one doctor's office, and in his office, he has a LaTip badge. I'm like, "Oh, cool. How's that LaTip thing going for you?" Oh, he goes, "I just dropped out. It was horrible." And I'm like, "I haven't even been in business yet for real, and I'm already making bad decisions." And I ended up staying in that group. And for the first 4 years of my practice, that group was responsible for over 50% of my patients.
You sound so much of what my current, the guy that I literally just handed my community to is actually doing. So it's actually another chiropractor. He owns a practice here in Austin called Limitless, and he's the one I decided to hand it off to because he has a pretty solid team at this place. But he sounds very similar to you in the sense of like what you were doing. Of he's just like he's such a connector. He knows so many people. Like he's like connected with Tesla, and like the Tesla employees come to his office, and like he's just got all these like random connections of all the local businesses here in town, which is like obviously the main driving force for his business and his practice. Is like, I know there's an expression of like the super connector. I've always found that expression a little cringy, but if you want to be that person, and if you can be, as you said, like the mayor of 5 miles, like it's just a matter of time at that point, in terms of like building a successful practice.
And I think at the heart of it, if it's about service and taking care of the people, everything else will take care of itself. Because I was like the safety officer kind of for UPS. Like I took care of quite a few guys there, and they're like, "Oh, we have a safety meeting that meets once a month. Can you come to that?" So I went to one, and they're like, "What about this? What about this?" So I just gave some input. They're like, "Hey, could you start coming every month?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I started coming every month, and then about 6 months later, they're like, "Hey, we wanna do a wellness fair. Could you help us do a wellness fair? Because I know you do your picnic." And so then I got to pick, like, all the people, so I called all my buddies that I knew that did great work in our area, and I said, "Hey, do you wanna be part of this UPS?" So they had first dibs, so then I was helping them, and it just became a great event for us, and it became a great event for the people I knew. So helping the people that you do business with that do good business is really helpful.
So I want to shift a little bit into more or less like, I guess, niche and niche marketing and a niche business or things of that nature. Because I know you have a personal experience with like upper cervical care. And I know that was partly a personal experience, then also probably a business decision as well. I'm curious as to like how that showed up, like what the story is on both ends of that, both from the personal and the business side of it.
So from the personal, so when I was 16 years old, I had my fourth concussion, and I played football for 7 years. I had 3 car accidents, and I woke up in the hospital. My mom's like, "You just had your fourth concussion. You can't play football anymore." And I'm like 5'10". At the time, I weighed a buck 50. I'm like, "No, mom, I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm not going to, which was not was going to happen. So thank God he gave me that fourth concussion. But when I was 15 or 16, my mom said, "Okay, so I'm like, I have headaches every day." She goes, "Take some Advil." So I started taking Advil, and then I ran into my martial art instructor who was a chiropractor. And what I missed was that chiropractic could help me, but he shared the message that chiropractic can help you be healthy without drugs. I'm like, cool, that's what I want to do. So I went off to be a chiropractor. I'd never been adjusted. I got assigned an intern. The intern started adjusting me. I didn't get better. My back got better, my neck got a little better, but my headaches were still there. And then I met a doctor, Dr. Forrest. He's in the Bay Area in Pleasanton, and he came out, gave a talk, checked my spine. He says, "Yeah, I can help. Why don't you fly out and see me?" I'm like in Davenport, Iowa. I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. With all my extra capital, I'll just fly out there." And so, but my mom and dad lived in Reno, so I got there. My dad drove me over the hill. I got adjusted. He referred me to a doctor, Ciro Ricci in Kansas City, which was like 5 hours from Davenport, Iowa. Like, that's the closest you can do. He's like, yep. So I started driving there 2 or 3 times a week for the next, probably 8 to 12 weeks. Week 3, all of a sudden, I went from taking 8 Advil a day from 15 or 16 till I was 23. And my headaches were gone, everything got better. So then I got into Blair upper cervical. And so then I opened my practice based on that. And I went and did an internship in Seattle for like 2 years where I got to work 80 hours a week. I got to do 3 screenings a week, and I got to get paid $500 a month. And so that was I was probably overpaid if I'm looking back at it, but it gave me like a different way to interact with people, because you get, like, when you're doing that much, like, you get so many at bats and you just get a lot of swings. And so I took that and then opened up my practice in Reno, and it was Blair, and it was really a nice way for me from a niche standpoint to be like, hey, this is how I'm different. There's no twisting or popping, and not that any technique's good or bad. Like, my daughter's in chiropractic school. I'm like, honey, pick your technique. This is what I picked. This is why I picked. But um so for me, I think it was just like, this is how we're different. So however you're different, know your 3 reasons or 3 things that make your office different. Cause it's not that you're going to be different. Like, every office in town is going to do at least one of the 3 things you're going to do, but the difference will be the combination of the 3 things.
Yeah, I would say it's probably like the one of the number one conversations that I have with most doctors is understanding their differentiator and also being able to communicate that differentiator to potential patients. Because like, it's one thing to know what it is. Maybe you have some really cool certification, but if a patient has no idea what that is or how that helps them solve the problem, it's honestly kind of useless at the end of the day.
100%. Yeah. Cause I
Yeah.
think we had patients from 28 states, 4 countries out of that office.
If you were to be building and scaling a practice and now today, how quickly would you tap back into that niche type style of a practice, or would you avoid it altogether?
No, I would definitely lean in, because cause I just want to be the best at what I do in that space. And it's what you said. How does it, because patients don't care that I did Blair. They didn't care that I did Blair, but what they cared about, it was very gentle, it was very specific, and it was, there was no twisting and popping. Those are my 2 biggest things that, um, like, people would like were their concerns. So just answering their concerns. So I would definitely lean into that. I really like right now I do upper cervical with some activator and Thompson drop. I like that because it's easy on the doctor. Like, as you're picking your technique, like, pick a technique that your body can withstand. Like, I'm north of 800,000. I don't think I'm in 900,000 adjustments, but I'm north of 800,000 adjustments in my career, and my body still does great. And and that was very intentional by doing. Blair is very, specific on doing good work, and Thompson is very gentle on the body, and Activator is gentle on the body.
So you've said that people are the biggest challenge in going to practice, which based on the number of conversations I've had with doctors, I couldn't agree more, is kind of like what I alluded to earlier in this conversation of like hiring, retaining talent, things of that nature. I'm curious though, you've said something about this dream team card, and you seem to be knowledgeable on this topic of being able to build a dream team. What does that mean, first of all, and what do you think is like the essential steps in order to like get people on the same page?
So I think the thing is to know what's important to them. I know, like, Dr. Franson, he always talks about like personal, professional, financial goals. Um, but even deeper than that, like, what are your core values? Like, what are your dreams? Like, so for me, it was important to know those. And like, a lot of times they're like, oh, you don't talk about that at work. You go to work and you do your work, and then you do your home. But like, I'm like, man, I spend more time with people at work than I do with my family. Like, I want to know what's important to these people. And it took me so long to figure it out that I'm like, I want to come up with a dream team card where I'm like, man, in 2 pages, I could at least know the essence of that human. So I'd be like, man, what do they do that's cool that we can connect on? Because people look at, like, I just did this for an office, and there was a big extrovert and a big introvert, and they got paired together to share their team cards, and they came out of it, and the guy's like, "Man, we have this in common, and this in common, and this in common." And it was just really cool when people start to see people for who they are, it changes the game. And so the team card was literally 20 plus years of like Why is that important? Why is that important? Because it's the simplicity that makes it amazing. It's 2 pages and literally, like, you could know the essence and what's important to a human and what they're about, and, and fun things too, like, from core values to what's their greatest version, what's their top 3 goals, like, it's just a really cool way to get to know another human.
And this is different than like a personality test, right? Because I know that's been something that's been around. Even when I used to practice as an OT, I remember they made me take some personality. Or no, I took the Strength Finder, which I guess is a little bit different. But it's different than a personality test, though. Correct?
Yeah, 100%. So, it's self-created, so we do have personality tests in there. The 2 things that we have in there, we have Myers-Briggs because it's a free test. The personality test I like is it's called Management by Strengths, and it's a great test. It's a great hiring tool. PDP is another great one. Gallup Strength Finders is awesome if you want to know, like, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, so you play to the top 5 and don't play in the bottom 5. And then the other one we do is the 5 love languages, because I think people, even though it's weird to talk about, like, at first it was weird. Now I don't really push too much, but, like, talking about love at work, it's like, well, it's just how do you receive appreciation or how do you show appreciation? Just so you can communicate and interact. It's like, I'm a hugger. I'm physical touch is like, I'm a 10 out of 10 on that one. And like some of my team members are like, nope, like that's not my jam. They're like number 5. They're like, nope. I had this one lady, like any interaction I would have with her, I would get one hug. That was it for the whole day. And so just knowing what's important to people and knowing how to honor them in that space, like people who are like acts of service, like, hey, can I help with that? It just hits them different. If you know people's top 2, especially it's the people you work closely with or the people you lead, like if you know those things, it's easy to do their top 2. Where if you do their bottom 5, like if I'm hugging, like high five and hug, that's not hitting with her at all. She's like, this guy's in jack, like not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally do. I used to think actually mine was physical touch, and it might have been at one point, but I think actually now, especially these days, I think I'm more probably acts of service or words of affirmation. I think are probably my top 2 now. Affirmation is one that I have found just in general is just like that's one of the things that I am always trying to do in terms of for team building related things is like acknowledgement for me is like, and I don't know if it's like maybe it's a personal bias thing because like that's what I appreciate, but I remember learning somewhere along the way of like people are happily willing to take a lower paycheck if they just feel appreciated. And so I think like, and I don't say that to like try to like, not give somebody what they're worth or to like be a cheapo on terms of like paying people. I just say that in the sense that generally speaking, people just want to be appreciated regardless of like how much or how big their paycheck is at the end of the day. So that's one that I'm trying to be really big on, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm always like, for every I always do like a minimum's like 3 compliments to like 1 challenge or shortcoming. 5 is good, 10 is out world class. Like if you're doing 10 for every time you go to somebody with a problem or an issue, or it's like, oh, you're not doing this right. The only time you come to me is when I'm not doing things right. Like you want to be, 5 to 1, I think is like people can do that. 10 to 1 is awesome. But if you're 1 to 1 people, and if you're negative in that, it's horrible. It's like an emotional bank account. You're just wearing out.
Yeah, I mean, people. There's a phenomenal book I remember reading. It's called I think Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. I don't know if you're familiar with this book. Yeah. So there's a quote. Anybody, if the listener hasn't listened or read it or whatever, is so B.J. Fogg is essentially like the guy behind like one of the why some of the social medias are so addictive. He just understands human behavior at like a really, really high level. So obviously it can be used from a dark side, but the good side that I took away from it was basically there's a quote in there that I think about all the time. And he says, people change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. And basically what that means is that positive reinforcement is a far better way to get long-term sustainable behavior change than negative reinforcement. So kind of to your point of like 10 to 1, it doesn't mean that there's like never scenarios where like you need to be like, yo, stop being an asshole to our patients. Like you should probably do that. But generally speaking is like positively reinforcing the things that they're doing well is actually probably a way better way to get long-term behavior change than it is to just like harp on the negatives.
And the superpower in that is if you can attach their behavior to the core value of the business, that's where it's a game changer. Cause then it's like, oh, this is what we're about. And then it also keeps core values front of mind. And that's because every business has core values. Some of them are bullshit, like the ones that they want everybody to see. And some of them are like truly who they were. I know mine were they were not the truth for a long time because I wanted the cool ones. And, when we finally came down to it, our office core value, when we really settled in, our number one core value is caring. And, but it wasn't cool. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we have this really, even though now I think it's in phase, but like I opened up in 2000, like it just wasn't, it took me a long time to get to that space because and I think just understanding the core values and then I think, and the way you do that is hire the right person. I think people hire too fast. They hire people they like. They don't know if they have the right personality for the job. They don't know what personality the job should have. And like one of my favorite stories was about this executive who went to the hotel, and the hotel, he's like, man, the people were smiling and they were happy. And the executive gets with the hotel manager. He's like, man, how do you know, what do you do to train these people to be happy and so courteous and all that? He goes, what? He goes, yeah, like your people are the most courteous. They're always happy, always smiling. He goes, we hire happy, courteous people. But they knew what they were hiring. Most chiropractors like, dude, I like you. You'll take, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this feels similar to the conversation, or actually, I think the last podcast episode or the one that came up before this one. That was a question I asked: is how does he hire? Which I'm glad you naturally segued into this topic because it was actually where I was going next. But he said he hires for culture and values, not necessarily skills, because he believed that he could train skills more easily than he could train certain values or cultural related things. I'm curious for you though, is like, how do you hire the right person? Like, is there non-negotiable traits that you screen for? Like how do you make that?
Yeah, I have like 2 pages of non-negotiables as far as like for if we buy an office to if we hire a doctor. Like one of our non-negotiables on a doctor is they have to meet either me or my partner's wife, and they have to pass their test because we make bad decisions traditionally. But they're like, "Yep, they're weird." They'll just pick it up faster, and we're just like, so that's one of the non-negotiables on doctor hiring. On team hiring, we have a great team. Ellie, she's awesome, and so we have like a 20-step process that just kind of goes through and pulls them out. And one of the spaces is sharing the vision, sharing our core values, and then just asking them like, what core value most connected with you and why? And so when they answer that, like, then you can start to see who that human is, and if it aligns. And so that's how we would do it. And we do like, we have a phone interview. To the phone interview, if they pass that, they have to submit like a video that answers some questions. Then they get a phone interview. Then they go into a group interview. And it's not a group interview to see who's the loudest or who's the whatever. Most of the time I'm actually trying to pull out bossy people because there's people who get in there and they want to be the show, where in our office, God's the show and the patients are the show. Like we're just the characters in it. So that helps us understand that. And then if they pass the group interview, then we pull them aside, we talk to them. And then if they pass that, then they take the management by strengths test to see if their personality or their makeup would be good for that position that we're hiring. And then that moves into an offer.
How long does that entire process take? Because I mean, that's quite a few steps, which I think is great. I think there should be a lot of vetting up front so you don't waste your time. But like, how long does that take?
It can be as quick as a week. Like honestly, like you can do that pretty fast. Like we have group interviews. We have a couple team members who, like the office managers, are typically the ones who are interviewing, doing the phone interview. Ellie sometimes will. I sometimes will. So we just get through those phone calls.
Do you feel like your success rate's pretty high with that process? And what are some of the things that you have missed or often miss in that process?
I think the biggest thing that I missed in the beginning was I would hire the person. Now we have like our COO or Ellie. She'll bring us the 3 or 4 candidates that could do the job. Where I'm like, I could fix them. That was my biggest issue. I'm like, I like them. I want to fix them. I want to help them. Versus Ellie will bring me like, okay, these 3 people are qualified to do this job. Which one do you like the best? So it would just narrow my choices.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning of this, is like I'm glad that we're able to dive deeper into this topic of like hiring and team building and keeping people around and building the culture and having a vision and aligning values, because like these are conversations that I honestly, it's like one of the biggest challenge points of most practices. I mean, you even said it prior to this, before we even recorded, of like just the challenges of like building a practice is like one of the biggest ones is the team aspect of it. So I'm glad we're able to dive into this. Are there any other aspects of this like journey from like finding, hiring, keeping, retaining, growing a practice? Are there any other like steps within that process that we've missed that maybe we haven't hit on in this conversation?
I think like it's such a deep conversation and so individualized per office, but I think the biggest thing is know the position and hire for the position. Um, and hire people, you know, not that you don't like, but like maybe you wouldn't hang out with. Like when I first started, I would hire people. I'm like, I'd hang out with them, but like they weren't the right people. For some of the jobs, they were the right person, but for some of the other jobs, they were the wrong person. And so, and I think Abe Lincoln, he probably did some of the best where he hired people who would really challenge him. And that's where I landed. Like, I feel like sometimes with Ellie, and Lacey, Lacey was my last general manager. I felt like every time we'd have a conversation, I'd have to put my headgear on, my boxing gloves, and we'd be like, all right, let's go. Cause I'm like trying to grow the practice and she's trying to maintain excellence in the clinic. So, but it was a fight.
I like that. It's counterintuitive what most people think, right? Like most people probably think about it from the angle of I should just hire somebody that would be cool or want to hang out with, or that's maybe my best friend for that matter. And it sounds like you're more approaching it from, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but more of like if you want to build a elite sports team, you're not necessarily like hiring like the nicest guy. You're hiring the guy that can catch the football, right?
You know, caring is, you know, integrity is our number, like in our office right now, integrity is our number one, caring is number two, and excellence in action is our number three. So they have to have those three have to align with who they are. They don't have to be their core values, but those have to align.
One other thing I wanted to make sure to touch on in this conversation is that I know that you admit doing too much and having a bit of shiny object syndrome, as one might say. So I'm curious in terms of like how, as I can be similar, I think a lot of people can fall into that camp of like wanting to do all the things, especially depending upon what stage of business they're in. Is like oftentimes is the challenge that most people face is that it's not a lack of ideas, a lack of things to do. It's like, how do you focus on the right things and prioritizing the correct things? Because there's technically speaking, infinite number of things you could do potentially to grow a business or to grow a practice or to provide better care or to types of events you can host or whatever. And so I'm curious as to like, how have you been able to manage this shiny object syndrome? And maybe what some of the tips that you could give to other doctors to like make sure they're focusing on the right things?
That's a who problem. It's like having that person, because I think, like to your statement, I always think like entrepreneurs, they're never gonna starve, they're gonna drown. And so you gotta have that other bit that is gonna be that person who's gonna say, good idea, bad idea. And having that clear communication with that person, because for a while, my COO didn't know, like, I'm bringing her these ideas. I wasn't saying put them in play. I'm like, do these work in our system or not work in our system? Because I needed her to be able to look at it to say, yep, this will work. No, this is not gonna work. And so it's a who problem, making sure you have that person who's opposite. And my wife's that person for me at home. And before I just wouldn't share things with her because I didn't want her to be like that Debbie Downer, even though she's one of the most positive people I know. But she'd be like, well, why do you want to do that? And I'm like, because I want to. That's what, like, all this, like, I got offended as soon as she asked why, versus she's like, she goes, I'm just curious, like, why? And then now I'm like, now I go to her, I'm like, okay, I want to do this. What do you think the problems could be? Because then now I can just save a lot of scar tissue and a lot of pain. And so now leaning into those two people is really critical. So having that person at home and also having that person at the office.
Yeah, I can relate to this so much, man. I one of the things that's like allowed me to pull back from it as well is recognizing that every project or topic or interest that you have has a depth of nuance to it that you have no idea exists. For example, I have many examples of this, but the most recent one is I actually just recently built a new custom PC because like some of my work stuff was just getting really like bogged down with my laptop. So I bought all the parts for a new computer. And my fiance, she's like, how long? Because I've built computers in the past, and she's like, how long does it take for you to like build one of these? And I was like, I've probably built like 4 computers in my lifetime. I was like, maybe like an hour or 2 hours. So she's like, probably like at least 3 times that. And sure enough, like it took probably all in a total of like 10 hours before I was done with this thing.
The rule of pi. That's
Yeah.
that's what we call that one. You know, if you're building out a project, if you're doing an office remodel, like times the time and money by 3.
That is at least 3, if not like 5.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Amen.
oh man. Last thing I wanted to hit on, something that we've talked about on previous conversations is the compound effect. This is a Darren Hardy thing, is where I first learned it, and it's honestly, it was like one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life. And I know that people have a lot of like misconceptions around this, especially in a chiropractic practice, and like maybe how long some of these things actually take to come to fruition. I think oftentimes like people building businesses or practices are thinking like in this like 1 year, 2 year time frame, and maybe they should be thinking in like the 5 year, 10-year time frame. But I'm curious as to like what are some actions that a chiropractor can commit to today that we know will compound and have massive growth in their business, maybe in the next 12 months or 12 years, even for that matter.
The one thing that comes up is all opportunities come from relationships. So building relationships right now, every day, pouring into that, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it's the most valuable. I remember we had a great relationship with our bank. And when COVID hit, I called up my banker, who was the president, and he said, yeah, he goes, let me help you out. So we literally got our check first. And then I knew some people who were a little bit ahead of the game. So then I could pass on information, but like those relationships, and him and I, like we would go to lunch once a month, on a Thursday at this one place downtown. And he would just help me out. And so finding those mentors that can be just champions for you and for your business was critical. So if I was to say pour into one place, like that would be the place. Like pour into relationships and just be a good person, and like and be really clear. Like I wanted to give is like I just wanted to give and help and serve. And I think if you go into the relationship that way, and if you have a mentor, like the one thing my mentor told me, he goes, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. He goes, come to me with topics every time. So I would prep for it. And then it was 10 times, 100 times more valuable because I had different questions versus if I just went there to hang out, we'd just hang out and shoot the shit. And it was not as valuable versus like, okay, I have a challenge here, challenge here, challenge here. And I don't think I leaned into that enough when I was younger.
Tony Robbins' quote that has served me well is he said, a relationship is a place you go to give, not to get.
Yeah.
And I think that's good advice. What's your plug? Where can people find you? How can people reach you?
Dream Leader Institute. I'll give you my contact stuff will be below. You can schedule an appointment. The Dream Team card's probably like the thing that I think is most valuable. We do a Dream Team program where we help build a culture. Like so many people think your culture is not what you write it out or say it to be or your vision of it. Your culture is who you hire. And so, shifting that is critical. And then I'll have my cell phone, my email, and then the Dream Team program. So you'll have all that.
Dr. Clifford Fisher, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.